In the heart of Moscow, a ghost haunts the skyline, not of a person, but of a building, the Palace of the Soviets. Meant to be the world's tallest building, it symbolized Soviet ambition, but was never finished. Its story is one of immense ambition, colliding with the harsh realities of history. The unbuilt tower remains a powerful reminder that even the grandest plans can be swept away by history. Its ghost still lingers over Moscow, challenging us to remember the power and the limits of human vision. After Lenin's death in 1924, the Palace of the Soviets was conceived, not just to honor him, but to cement Soviet ideology. Under Stalin, it became a symbol of socialism's victory, meant to outshine the capitalist West. More than a building, it was a political competition. Steel and stone declaring the future belonged to socialism. The Palace of the Soviets was designed to be a true colossus, 415 meters tall, dwarfing the Empire State Building. Its height wasn't just a number, it was a statement. Atop the building, a 100-meter statue of Lenin would watch over Moscow, a skyscraper on a skyscraper. The design blended Art Deco, neoclassicism, and emerging Stalinist architecture, forming a tiered cylindrical wedding cake rising skyward. Each layer was adorned with columns and sculptures, celebrating Soviet workers, soldiers, and farmers. Inside, the main hall would seat over 20,000 people, the world's largest auditorium. The chosen site was symbolic, the banks of the Moskva River, directly across from the Kremlin. But the site was occupied by the Cathedral of Christ the Savior, a symbol of the old order. In 1931, the cathedral was dynamited, clearing the way for the new socialist monument. The palace would have transformed Moscow, dwarfing the Kremlin and reorienting the city around itself. New avenues were planned to radiate from the palace, shifting Moscow's center of gravity. The city would no longer be defined by czars and patriarchs, but by Lenin and the Soviet state. The palace wasn't just an addition, it was a complete redefinition of Moscow. It was architecture as revolution, built on the ruins of the past. The vision was set. Now the world would watch as the Soviets tried to make it real. But first, they needed the perfect design. To find the right design, the Soviet government launched a global architectural competition in 1931. Over 270 concepts poured in from around the world, including entries from Le Corbusier, Gropius, and Mendelssohn. The competition became a showcase of modernist and classical ideas reflecting the era's architectural debates. Le Corbusier's radical, functionalist design and Gropius's minimalist vision clashed with more traditional, monumental proposals. International entries revealed a fascination with the project and a clash of visions, pure modernism versus heroic classicism. But Soviet authorities were unimpressed by the stark modernist designs, finding them too formalist and not grand enough. They wanted a building that was monumental, symbolic, and accessible to the masses. The competition ended without a clear winner. Instead, the best ideas would be combined, and a Soviet architect would lead the final project. The search for the palace's true form was just beginning. The world's eyes were on Moscow. The stakes had never been higher. The next step, a vision that would satisfy both politics and ambition. With no clear winner, the project entered a new phase, one shaped by Soviet priorities. Boris Iofan, a respected Soviet architect, emerged as the lead designer. His revised design fused the American skyscraper's form with classical monumental details. The building became a layered, cylindrical tower, narrowing as it rose, a powerful sense of upward movement. The key innovation, the palace as a pedestal for a colossal Lenin statue, his arm outstretched over the city. Iofan's team, including Shchuko and Gelfrich, refined the design, adding sculptural and classical elements. The result was the pinnacle of Stalinist architecture, monumental, symmetrical, and heavily ornamented. The palace rejected modernist minimalism in favor of heroic, decorative classicism. Iofan's design marked a turning point, signaling a break from the avant-garde and the rise of an official, state-sponsored style. The palace was celebrated as the embodiment of socialist realism in architecture. It was a vision of a powerful, ordered, and heroic future, crystallized in a single colossal building. The stage was set for construction to begin. With the design finalized, work began in earnest. The first act, the dramatic demolition of the Cathedral of Christ the Savior in 1931, filmed as propaganda for the new secular state. Clearing the rubble took over a year, leaving a blank slate for the palace. Building the foundation was a massive engineering challenge. The ground was soft, requiring huge concrete rings sunk deep into the earth. thousands of workers toiled as new high-strength steel was developed for the project. By 1941, the lower steel skeleton was in place, and the concrete foundation rings were complete. For a moment, it seemed the dream was becoming reality, the palace's ghost rising on the Moscow skyline. But problems mounted. The site's geology was more difficult than expected. Water seeped in, and resources were stretched thin. Progress lagged behind propaganda. The visible steel frame was only a fraction of the planned structure. The most complex work was still ahead. The palace's ambition was already running into the limits of engineering and economics. Then, history intervened. The world was about to change, and with it, the fate of the palace. The dream was on the brink. The next chapter would bring it crashing down. The end was near. In June 1941, Nazi Germany invaded the USSR. The nation's priorities shifted overnight. All resources were redirected to the war effort. Construction on the palace stopped immediately. The site fell silent, the dream put on hold by the largest conflict in history. Soon, the unfinished steel frame became a source of desperately needed metal. In 1942, the structure was dismantled, its steel melted down for tanks, weapons, and fortifications. The material for a utopia was used to defend the motherland. After the war, the Soviet Union was devastated. Millions dead, cities in ruins. Rebuilding took precedence. The extravagant palace was postponed, then quietly abandoned. Stalin's death in 1953 sealed its fate. Khrushchev denounced architectural excess and focused on practical housing. The palace, so closely tied to Stalin, was now a relic of a bygone era. The project was never officially cancelled, but it was over. The world's tallest building became a memory, a monument to ambition undone by war and changing times. The dream was finished. All that remained was a foundation and a haunting absence on the Moscow skyline. The story, however, was not quite over. For years, the palace's site was an abandoned, water-filled pit, a scar on Moscow and a symbol of unfulfilled dreams. In the late 1950s, Khrushchev's government chose a practical solution: convert the foundation into the world's largest open-air swimming pool. The Moskva pool opened in 1960, its heated waters steaming through Russian winters. For over 3 decades, Muscovites swam where the world's tallest building was meant to stand. The site's transformation, from cathedral to palace to pool, mirrored the unpredictable twists of Soviet history. After the Soviet Union's collapse, Russia sought to reconnect with its religious past. In 1994, the pool was demolished, and the Cathedral of Christ the Savior was rebuilt on the original site. By 2000, the cycle was complete. The ground returned to its original purpose. The site's history became a microcosm of Russia's own journey: destruction, ambition, reinvention, and return. The palace's foundation had supported dreams, leisure, and faith. Its story was written in concrete, water, and stone. The ghost of the palace lingered, but the city moved on. The legacy, however, endured. The Palace of the Soviets was never built, but its legacy is profound. It stands as one of history's most famous unbuilt buildings, a cautionary tale of hubris and utopian dreams colliding with reality. The project shows how architecture can be wielded as a political tool, projecting power and ideology onto a city. Its absence is as powerful as its intended presence, a monument to failure and the limits of totalitarian ambition. The palace's story captures a pivotal moment: the shift from international modernism to state-sponsored monumentalism. Boris Iofan's design became the template for Stalinist architecture across the Eastern Bloc. Even unbuilt, the palace shaped the architectural landscape of the 20th century. For architects and urban planners, it's a case study in scale, symbolism, and the risks of mega-projects. The site's journey, from construction pit to swimming pool to cathedral, offers lessons in urban transformation. The palace lives on in our imagination, featured in novels, films, and games as a symbol of an alternate history. It represents a future passionately believed in, but never realized. The story of this unbuilt giant is about the power of ideas, the weight of history, and the enduring human urge to build monuments that reach for the heavens.